I cannot confirm, but I think Jesse Winker just hit another home run. He and the Reds are burn the roof of your mouth hot right now. We'll ask Mark Sheldon if they can keep it up. Plus,
my brother was he was like one of my biggest fans. So,
new defensive back for the Bengals, Ricardo Allen, will be playing with a heavy heart this season. Caleb No will share the story of a brotherly bond broken due to tragedy. And moving forward after a tough year for high school sports, Cincinnati athletic directors are cautiously optimistic that fans will be back full steam in the fall.
From WCPO 9 Sports, this is Sports of All Sorts.
What up? Welcome to Sports of All Sorts. I'm Reggie Wilson. On this show over the last month, we've talked about how inconsistent the Reds have been. They hadn't won more than 2 games in a row since the first week of the season, and some of the losses have been some of the ugliest we've seen. We know this team has talent and can be exciting to watch, but fans have been waiting to see them put together a good stretch and play to their potential. Then this week happened. The Reds came into Sunday winning 5 of their last 6, creeping once again towards 500. Reds going for the 4-game sweep in St. Louis for the first time in 31 years. Started really well. Jesse Winker is hotter than sizzling fajitas at Chili's. His 15th this season gives the Reds a 2-0 lead. He was far from done. Top second now, 2-1. Winker does it again. 3-run bomb ties his career high with 16 home runs. It's 5-0. Lead gets up to 7-0, and the bullpen did bullpen things after Wade Miley's strong start. TJ Anton gives up an RBI base hit to Nolan Arenado to tie the game. And then the Wink man says, "I got us." Top 9th, he blasts off again. Reds let it hang, and Winker let him pay. Second career home run, a 3-home run game, ties the NL lead with 17 homers, gives the Reds an 8-7 lead. Lucas Sims makes things interesting in the 9th, but he gets the strikeout to end the game. Reds hold on 8-7 to sweep the Redbirds.
That was a hard-fought one right there, and that was a great series for us. That was a great win right there. Lucas coming in and slamming the door, that was huge. Man, that was a big win. That was a good one right there.
All right, my first guest is Mark Sheldon. Read his work on the Reds on MLB.com. Mark, first road trip for you in more than a year to one of the best places. I'm a little biased, my hometown. How's it going in the Lou?
It's going well. It was good to be back on the road and interviewing players in person and just seeing the game. It's good. It's a lot better than on television. They do a good job covering the game on TV and radio, but it's nice to see it in person.
Yeah, nothing like that in-person experience. Well, first off, how about Jesse Winker?
Yeah, wow. I think he may have just hit another home run from the plane. He's having a moment right now, and it's great to see for him. He's been kind of doubted for years about whether he had enough power to be the kind of hitter he's become. And now he has his career high already. It's June 6th, and he's already got 17 homers for the season. And he just has a consistent swing, and he tries to hit line drives. But with the way that the ball's carrying off his bat, and he gets a lot of hard contact, a lot of those line drives are clearing the fence and becoming home runs. So there's definitely more to grow, and he can obviously have a great year. He's second in the league for home runs right now, behind Vladimir. What's his name all of a sudden? Vladimir Guerrero, excuse me, sorry, and he's just coming into his own right now.
And Mark, things are a lot different than when we talked last week. Reds put together a hot streak we haven't seen since the first week of the season. What's behind the success?
Well, the hitting has been big. They've been getting a lot of contributions, whether it's Nick Castellanos, Jonathan India has really had a hot week, and Winker, of course. Tyler Naquin has been huge in delivering big RBI opportunities. And then the pitching, of course, Luis Castillo. It doesn't hurt that he had a very big, important win to snap his long losing streak. Vladimir Gutierrez is looking good through his first 2 starts. Sonny Gray did not have a great outing, but he's still been pretty good for them this year. And, of course, Tyler Mahle pitched great in this series. He had a nice 7-inning outing on Saturday. So it's kind of all coming together, at least the starting pitching and the hitting. And now Joey Votto is possibly going to be back on Tuesday, and maybe not too much further along. Mike Moustakas will be back, and there'll be more hole in that lineup, and maybe they'll see if they can keep it up.
Yeah, we know how the ebb and flow of baseball is, so I asked this next question with that in mind. Is this play sustainable?
It's sustainable, but they do have to find ways to get their bullpen to hold leads. They cannot give away 7-run leads on the daily and expect those kind of results to carry out through the whole year and have winning results. But yes, they have enough starting pitching. They have a deep lineup. When it can do what it's supposed to do, it does score runs. They scored 23 runs in the series, and that's really good. And they did find a wounded Cardinal team, but the way they were playing, they should be able to carry that into the next series, which is also big, against the Milwaukee Brewers, which are a first-place team.
All right, so you mentioned it. I do want to talk a little bit more about it. That bullpen has been atrocious. What needs to be done to help fix things?
Well, they have to throw strikes. They have to limit home runs and hits. Right now, the way I see it, they only have 2 relievers in that bullpen they can really trust, and that's obviously TJ Antone and Lucas Sims. After that, it's getting tough. They have some guys that are dependable sometimes, then they have some guys that have just been getting hit hard, and like Amir Garrett. It might be time to start looking elsewhere for some extra guys. There's guys in the minor leagues, whether it's like a Tony Santillan, who's a starting pitcher prospect, and maybe you think about bringing him up to be a reliever. Maybe in a few weeks, if he has more development, you start thinking about Hunter Green. He could come up and be a reliever, and a really good one, throwing 100 to 105 miles an hour. I'm not saying that's a long-term solution for Green or something like that, but I think they have to start thinking about bringing in effective pitchers that can get these outs, because there's really no way you can have somebody come in and face 5 hitters and not record an out like Michael Feliz did. That's just unacceptable.
Whew. Well, we'll see if the bullpen can turn it around. Let us pray. It hasn't looked good so far this season. But as always, Mark, thanks so much for taking the time. Safe travels back from the Lou.
Thank you, Reggie.
All right, so I want to hear from you. After a winning week of baseball, my question is simple. Will the Reds turn it on and make the playoffs this year? I want to hear it. Tweet me at Reggie Wilson TV and make sure to use the hashtag SOAS. Well, there's nothing like a bond between two brothers. Just ask new Bengals defensive back Ricardo Allen. Coming up, how Allen's brother helped shape his football career and continues to do so even after his death. Welcome back. Football season is just a few months away, and tonight, a story about one new Bengals player who has seen it all. The high of playing in the Super Bowl, but also the lowest of lows. Caleb No has the emotional story of how it all started.
Ricardo Allen still on his feet.
Growing up on the streets of Daytona Beach, Ricardo Allen didn't even play sports. That is, until one life-altering moment in middle school.
And it's intercepted by Ricardo Allen.
I was actually trying to cook hamburgers, and I remember starting it and heating it up and stuff like that. But I ended up going into we have like a little den in our house. I remember going into there and falling asleep.
The burgers caught fire in the frying pan, so Ricardo's older brother, Adrian, tried to put the fire out.
I remember my brother calling my name.
Adrian put the burning skillet under the sink, not knowing water would only intensify the grease fire. Adrian ended up with second-degree burns, which kept him out of football for a short time.
I'm the type of man, if I feel like I messed something up, I'm going to take my chances to go fix it.
4 men on the pass rush. Rodgers.
Ricardo's way of fixing it was by playing football, and that sport would change his life forever.
Ricardo Allen.
Football, has been like the foundation of like the person who I have become.
But this past summer, Ricardo's life was changed again.
Day by day.
In a way no amount of football success could ever touch.
Stabbed another man.
Where he stabbed him in.
In July of 2020, Ricardo's brother, Adrian Allen, was stabbed to death.
I come from a small family, so it ain't many of us, so you taking us out.
The same person who inspired Ricardo to play football in the first place, no longer able to watch from the bleachers.
He was like one of my biggest fans, so, you think when you get a whole bunch of money, that just fixes everything. That don't fix nothing.
Ricardo's next season will be here in Cincinnati, and while his brother won't be watching from the bleachers,
I think about him every time I was out there. I know, I can feel his energy and stuff like that.
he will be on Ricardo's mind with each snap of the ball. In Cincinnati, Caleb No, WCPO 9 Sports.
Wow, that brotherly love is a special bond. What a story. My next guest is the guy you just heard telling that story, Caleb No. Caleb, thanks for joining me. Such a sad situation, but you told it with care. How did this story come about?
Yeah, no, it's actually really interesting how it came about. Several years back, I was working at a TV station in Indiana, and I covered Purdue University sports. Well, Ricardo went to college at Purdue, and I had met him before. He came back to West Lafayette, did an interview with us after he played in the Super Bowl with the Falcons several years back. So I know Ricardo. We were kind of familiar with each other. But when we went, and I knew his story. So when the Bengals signed him this past offseason, I knew that was going to be a story to tell. But actually, I'll tell you what, man, I actually didn't even know the whole the big second element of the story, and the biggest element of it, and the fact that his brother had died last year. Obviously a very tragic, unfortunate element to the story, but I didn't even know that going into the interview. I planned on going into this interview doing the story about how Ricardo Allen began playing football, having no idea about the whole second element of the story. But obviously a sad story, but something that Ricardo is handling and living with, and it's something that I think that Bengals fans can get behind. Like, look, this is a guy we really want to see, to root for, to see succeed.
Ricardo was quite candid with you about something that's still very emotionally raw for him. What was the relationship like with his brother?
Yeah, he was very candid, and I appreciate that from Ricardo. I mean, I really, really appreciated him being so as candid as he was. I mean, he was clearly very emotional, and that was like raw. I mean, there was raw, true emotion. You could tell that he had a strong relationship with his brother. He talked about how when they were younger, they went out in the yard and played football, and he, they didn't play organized sports growing up. They grew up relatively rough. I mean, the way he put it to me is he said, quote, and I paraphrase, but I'm from the hood. That's what he said. They had a good bond with their small family growing up. And I think that's one thing, the small family unit that made them as close as they were growing up. And it makes us as emotional as it is for Ricardo.
Caleb, you mentioned the pivot you did with this story. Ricardo wasn't even the one who played sports. His brother was. How did it come about that he ended up playing at the highest level?
It's interesting. I had a whole separate interview that I didn't even have time to use in this story. As a matter of fact, it's with a guy that trains Ricardo. Ricardo Allen's 5'9". He's not tall enough to play defensive back in the NFL. He's a guy that's got a chip on his shoulder. His trainer told me, he said, look, Ricardo, and again, I paraphrase here, but his trainer said something along the lines of, Ricardo's that type of guy who's like always going against a ghost. Like, he's so serious all the time. And Ricardo even said that himself. He was like, football was never like a game that I played for fun. He was like, it was always so serious to me. I was always on a mission. He's 5'9". He grew up, in a relatively rough environment, but made the most of his circumstances. And man, did he ever make the most of it. He's played in the Super Bowl, and now he's here with the Bengals. And again, I think that he's a guy that a lot of Bengals fans can really choose to root for and want to see succeed this year as a Bengal and moving forward as a Bengal.
Caleb, we appreciate your storytelling, and we always appreciate your time on the show. So thanks again, and we'll catch up soon.
Always good to be on with you, man. Thank you.
High school athletes faced a lot of challenges both on and off the field this past year. Coming up, the changes they expect to see come fall. Welcome back. From attendance restrictions to team quarantines, high school sports endured a challenging journey this school year during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mike Dyer explains why Cincinnati area schools are hoping for better days ahead this fall.
The promise of summer brings an opportunity for renewal. No one may need that more in high school sports than the athletic directors during a school year in the COVID-19 pandemic.
There's not an AD in this city right now that's not exhausted, emotionally and physically exhausted. And we usually have the summer to recharge that. Seeing the way things are looking, I think we're all going to be able to recharge a little sooner and be excited for what I think next year can be.
As Ohio Governor Mike DeWine prepares to lift most COVID-19 health orders on Wednesday, high schools are optimistic that fans will be able to fully return in August.
Well, I turned in my budget to the treasurer last week, and I think if the Reds are the kind of the beacon of hope for all of us, and what they were able to do and open stuff back up. I hope that we get close to that.
Ohio High School Athletic Association Executive Director Doug Ute has cautious optimism for the ability to have full fan capacity by late August.
I hope our communities realize how important it is to support their local schools and the student athletes there, and get out and physically support them and cheer them on. So that's the best case scenario there. But again, with this virus, we certainly I never ever think we're out of the woods.
The OHSAA knows the unpredictable nature of the past 14 months, yet Ohio is on track to complete its spring state championships over the next 2 weekends. Not every state can say that. 7 other states will complete basketball or wrestling seasons later this month or in July. Meanwhile, Ohio has an eye toward August.
I'm just so excited to get the summer workout started, get some 7-on-7s going, get some, soccer leagues and basketball leagues rolling, and get me to August 1st. Let's get to week 1 and let's start the fireworks. It's long overdue.
Mike Dyer, WCPO 9 Sports.
All right, you just heard my next guest, our always busy high school insider, Mike Dyer. Mike, thanks so much for taking the time. Looking back on where we were in the summer up until now, they made it. How did we get here?
That was exactly the response that I got from the Wyoming Athletic Director, Jan Wilking, when I asked her the first question in putting together this story, Reggie, was simply, what's your thought on this entire school year? And she said exactly that. We made it. We finally got through the school year. And you talk about what a year it's been for everybody involved in high school sports, and obviously in the entire sporting world for that matter. But there's a sense of optimism that I received from a number of coaches and athletic directors that really was not there at all last May and June, and even the uncertainty of going into fall sports of last year, where the green light wasn't given until really early August for high school football. So this year you get the sense that these high schools are really anticipating student sections coming back and fan capacity being increased, and dare we say a new sense of normalcy. But I think everybody is just ready to get it going in terms of fall sports and put the past behind us.
Lastly, football kind of set the tone for how it was going to go last year, and this fall they get to kick off a new normal. How excited are these schools for the opportunity to welcome back some traditions in such a fan-centric sport?
Yeah, it's a great point, Reggie. I mean, I connected with Anderson football coach Evan Dreyer as an example based upon that anticipation, and posed that question to him. I mean, what's it going to be like being out on the field there on Friday nights? And, he said, I'm already just ready to connect with the student sections, having the sense of, as you mentioned, that fan presence that really, it was there to some extent in each of the 3 seasons this past school year, more so in the spring, obviously more recently. But yeah, I mean, it's much different watching an event, streaming online than it is in person. And I think, will you see the tailgating back? Will you see, just the ceremonies that would take place on the field in the pregame, and, just the different things that would happen at halftime, where fans and students, get together, and there's just a celebration of that week within that community. And I think everybody that I've spoken with is greatly anticipating all those things returning. And it's going to be, as Scott Kaufman mentioned at Lakota West, he said, let's get the fireworks going. It's long overdue. And, he said he's been an athletic director for a very long time. He said, I may not have anticipated a school year like I will for this fall, because there's certainly going to be a lot of great things to celebrate.
Mike, we appreciate all you do in keeping us informed. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Reggie. Really appreciate your time. I always enjoy speaking with you.
We'll be right back to wrap up the show. Welcome back. Coming up after the show is In Depth with Graham Benzinger. Check out what's on tap tonight.
This week, we spend the day in New York City with Kevin Love. The NBA star opens up about his depression.
But it was just scary to get down that route and think about the idea of taking my own life.
Plus, introduces us to his Sports Illustrated cover model girlfriend.
This is Kate, the finest wine here. It gets better with age.
And we join Love for a workout.
3, 2, 2. I'm counting for a reason.
All that's coming up next, right here on In Depth.
All right, thanks, Graham. Well, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun, but we got to go. I'd like to thank my guests, Mark Sheldon, Caleb Noe, and Mike Dyer for joining me tonight. And thank you to my village who helped me put this all together. Thank you for watching. Let's do it again next Sunday. Until then, have a good night and a very blessed week.